through this.
Committee and on the committee, that's why I was letting the committee sit there.
No, but we kept our noses clean.
All right. Kevin?
Doug, how are you? How are you? See you.
Okay, I think we can come to order. We have a quorum. I would like to suggest that, although many of you may have done this already today, that we all stand and pause for a moment of silence in recognition of September 11th, 2001. Okay, thank you. We have an agenda with about 10 or 11 items today. Out of respect for the schedule of our mayor, I'd like to suggest that the last item, the intermunicipal agreement, Kingston Schools and the City of Kingston, i.e. related to Audit Stadium, that we put that first. So, Mayor, if you please.
Can I join you at the table?
Sure.
Well, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to go over this with you tonight. As you know, for the last year or so, we've been negotiating with the Kingston City School Districts to just refresh your memory. As part of the governor's $10 million downtown revitalization initiative, we were awarded $2.5 million for the Audit Stadium complex. As part of that, the grant funders require an entity to be able to have site control and to be able to have management of the facility where the grant funds are going to be used. We went out to public referendum with the voters of the school district last May to be able to create that potential for control and management of one single entity. At our request, it would have been the City of Kingston. Audit Stadium has been managed by the Audit Stadium Commission, which was appointed over the years through agreement with 3 members of the school district, 3 members of the city, and they manage the stadium as a sort of semi-autonomous body. And over the years, that has led to management concerns, with really no one really in charge of Audit Stadium, and unfortunately Audit Stadium has suffered over the years with a lack of investment and a lack of leadership and a lack of vision. And through the $2.5 million grant and with a change in control, we're really excited to be able to have that leadership and that investment happening as the city. As all of you know, even before the relationship with the school district in the 1990s, this was a city stadium, and this was a municipal stadium, this is an opportunity for us to again continue to take some really great steps to improve the stadium and to be able to improve the work that's occurring here. And so through the conversations with both the school board and the superintendent, we've been able to come to a very positive agreement, one that is very similar to the arrangement we have now, but that agreement that we have has expired, and this is an opportunity for us to renew it. And I'm just going to go over the key points to it. We have copies for you if you haven't had a chance. It's also in your email box. But the general concept is that this agreement will give the City of Kingston and the Kingston Parks and Recreation Department and the Kingston Common Council through the budget process management control and capital control of the stadium. While the school district will still retain the half ownership that they have, we will be able to run the day-to-day operations and plan for, apply for, and seek to renovate the stadium. The school district, in return, will continue to get the same access they have now. They get first priority access to the stadium, and that includes everything from their sports leagues to their high school band to their practice for all of their different leagues. And so we have really been able to work out a great relationship so far this year, and it's been working well. We have a shared calendar between the Parks and Recreation Department and the Athletic Department, and we've had a really positive scheduling experience. And one of the things that this will also do is be able to make sure that the school district is responsible for their own equipment. So everything from hurdles to the different lacrosse sticks and balls, everything that the school district owns there and uses as equipment will still continue to be the school district's, and they'll have to continue to maintain their equipment. The school district will still be able to hold sectional games and be able to have playoff games and continue the traditional sport events that they have. But we've added some new things to the existing agreement that we think is going to really benefit our taxpayers and really benefit the stadium. So one of those things is that for these high-level profile games, like sectional games and other potential state championships, those are all ticketed, so people pay money to go to these games. And so we believe that that's a great opportunity for us to be able to take a new revenue stream by adding $1 or $2 to those tickets, so that the facility would gather some of those fees, because normally the school or the entity, the section keeps the admissions, or could keep the admissions, and now the facility will be able to add money into the operations and management and capital, paying down debt, things like that of the stadium. And it's something that the school district is very supportive of, and you'll see that in there. Another thing that the school district is supportive of is the fact that right now the school district pays $95,000 a year to allow their use of the stadium. And over this 5-year agreement, they will actually increase that amount by 2% each year over the next 5 years. So that amount will grow for the first time in many years. And so that's another positive. And another thing that we, both from the school district and my perspective, that we're excited about with this agreement is that because the school district will still retain that partial ownership, they have now committed to paying half of all future capital costs that are out of pocket for us, which means if we are successful to receive the $4 million worth of grants or so that we just applied for, the match for that for the city, it was approximately $1 million, which means the school district will pay half of that, $500,000 over the course of that project. And we feel like that kind of capital investment from the school district is an equal match to ours, and really will be able to further allow us to go after capital improvements. And this includes even small things. And so if the city of Kingston decides that we want to be able to put in a new X, and that costs $100,000 for this piece of capital equipment or capital infrastructure, the school district will match that and provide us $50,000 back as a reimbursement. And so we think that that's a win-win for us and all of the users of the stadium, and will allow for just a much better stadium in the future. And so that is really in essence, the agreement. And again, it's modeled after our current practice. There will be no change in use on behalf of the school district. The public will still have access to the stadium, and it will allow us, I think, to have much more better control. And we're also, through this agreement, we will be able to have liaisons to the Recreation Commission from the school district. And so the superintendent, as well as their athletic director, will be given a kind of ex officio positions to be able to meet with our Recreation Commission and be able to just be that liaison, which I think is again going to just continue to help build the relationship between the city and the school district. I think the last thing that I'll add that I think is something to just point out is that if any case, either party, either the city or the school district decides over these 5 years that, this isn't working out, it basically gives the ability for the Dietz Commission to be recreated and then reset up just like it has been for the last 10 years. And so really there's very little risk to this. I think that there's a lot of benefits to this agreement, and I think will really give us the tools necessary to just keep the process moving forward. The school board discussed this at their last meeting, and they plan to vote on it at their next school board meeting. I think it's just at the last week of this month. And so, I'm asking for you all to see if you have any questions for me here tonight. If you're prepared to move it forward, great. If not, I'd ask that a special finance meeting be held at the first week in October.
So you'd like to have this approved by, or this or whatever, by October?
Yes, we would.
So either tonight or at caucus?
Yeah. I know that because of the late council meeting, communications were just due yesterday, and so you guys didn't have a whole lot of time, but I'm here tonight to also answer any questions.
There you go. Steve?
Okay. First of all, I think this is going to be a real plus for the city. I really like this. I was never a big fan of the dual ownership of the stadium. But just let me see if I have this straight. You said they're going to continue to own the half interest in it?
Yeah.
Now, part of my concern with that, probably all of my concern with that, is I've always been under the impression that we've had a tough time securing grants and things like that because of the co-ownership. How is that going to affect that?
One of the things that we've never had a document that gave us site control, which basically gave us, what this gives us is full authority to manage, run, operate, and bond for the stadium. Before, when it was the commission, and half appointed by each body, the commission did not have the authority to do anything without going back to the school board or to the city. Now, with this agreement, the city will be in charge of Dietz Stadium. The ownership piece will only be by deed only, and so they won't have, if we decide to paint the bleachers yellow, they don't have a say after this whether they like the yellow or not. We don't have to go and ask their permission to paint the bleachers yellow. If we feel that it's in the best interest of the stadium to paint the bleachers yellow, with this agreement, we can now paint the bleachers yellow. I hope that maybe that helps, but again.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I really think this is going to give us an opportunity to really generate some revenue and some pride again in the stadium. I mean, it's really fallen into disrepair, and it's certainly not the jewel of the city it used to be. And I think this is a great step towards it. I think it's going to work out great.
Randy?
With Steve, I think this is a great idea. I just have a couple of questions out of curiosity. How is that $95,000 figure arrived at? Or does anybody know?
Yeah, so that over the last 4 years, I think we've been around that level, or maybe the last 3 years, right?
At least the
Yeah,
last couple of years,
at least
but
couple years.
in the most recent budget, it was a $95,000 contribution from the city and the school. The school also contributed towards security for the commission. Under this agreement, the school district will provide for security for the school events, so that's kind of carved out of this now.
And so that amount basically over the years was the general kind of necessary commitment by both the city and the school district to just operate at the basic level the stadium. And so that's kind of how it was arrived at. 5 years ago, I think it was at 75,000. It was increased to 95. And so that's where we wanted to because that's what the school district has budgeted, we also didn't want to do a major budget change for them. And so we think that a slow increase in that level of 2% a year over the next 5 years will, help continue to bring in, more, share the expense, because we do know that it costs a lot.
Sure, but there's a basic presumption that there's not going to be some kind of big increase in management costs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, then in terms of the match from the school district, does the school district have, because you gave the example of painting the bleachers yellow, so they have no input, they just get a bill?
Correct. And so for any expense that is considered a capital expense that will be permanently a part of the stadium, according to this agreement, each year in December or January, we will provide the school district with any capital expenses incurred by the city in the year prior, and then they will work with us through a reimbursement process to reimburse us those costs. And so some of them could be a fixed lump sum. So if we buy a $50,000 piece of necessary equipment, they'll reimburse us the $25,000. Or if we're working with a grant and the city bonds $1 million of local match for a grant over 20 years, then the school district will pay basically back to us half of those payments over the course of 20 years. So they won't have to give us that lump sum all at once. Just like we won't have to pay it all at once, they'll pay it over time. And so again, it makes it affordable for the school district as well.
Okay, and so then there's no particular enforcement mechanism if the school is not forthcoming with these monies, except for perhaps withdrawing from the agreement?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all.
Other questions? Well, how do you feel? Is there any reason we should put off a vote from this evening? Any more information need to be gathered between now and caucus?
Steve's raring to make a motion.
Pardon me?
Steve's raring to make a motion.
Do we have a committee report?
John can probably write one right up.
Where'd you get that? I'm recusing myself.
Huh?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Huh?
I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. I'm not going to vote on this. Is there enough?
Because you're an employee of the school
I'm an
district.
employee of the school district.
Okay? Oh, you have one? No. All right.
Good idea.
Our scribe will write one.
Do you have enough votes?
I think in combination with the revitalization grant and what we're doing here, as Steve says, it's going to do a lot to be bringing back some of these premier sporting events we have. And
Yeah. And while John is writing that, I'll just give a quick grant update about this. Right now, our grant team worked to put out a request for proposals related to Dietz Stadium to move forward with design and engineering for the $2.5 million grant. Those proposals were received, and the chosen bidder was awarded, and is Clark Patterson Lee. And so CPL is in the process now of they've assessed the stadium, they've visited with some of our staff, and they're now going to be in the process of working on doing some of this design work and having some public meetings over the winter, and we really look to get this project moving next year. And so it's again, with this timing will work out really well with the other grants that you allowed us to apply for additional work at the stadium, because those grants will be hopefully announced in December, and so we'll know whether the $2.5 million project will turn into a $6.5 million project plus, or we're just going to move forward with the 2.5 and then keep applying. So again, I think that it is good. It's perfect timing for this, because we are really getting to the point of really starting to get going here. So.
well, I can just say anecdotally, I'm tired of seeing all these great events go down to Fowler Stadium in Middletown, even though Ed Fowler was my track coach a few years ago.
Yeah. Our goal is to, again, continue to attract those events here, because I think we have like the perfect location off the thruway and near great businesses, and we have the parking, and we just need to give the stadium a facelift. And
Yeah.
I think we can do that. I know that the locker rooms and the bathrooms and
Oh.
they look like they were when they were built in 1970, and so it's time for a change. Or 1980. It wasn't even that long ago. So.
What do you think, well, John's writing here, what do you think the timescale will be for the refurbishment of the whole facility?
Yeah, I mean, I think that talking to Clark Patterson and Lee, I think that the hope is that, design will be able to be done this winter and into next spring, and that, we potentially could put the project out to bid next year, and be able to, again, because of the way that the stadium is used, it's used very heavily up until mid-October, late October, early November, and then there's a break. And so, if there's some work that we think we can get done, after that would be our goal, is so that through the winter months and into the following spring, we'd be ready to go before the next full sports season.
Okay, I have a committee report to authorize the mayor to execute an intermunicipal agreement between the Kingston City School District and the City of Kingston, which will provide the City of Kingston with management and capital control of Deet Stadium as per attached. Is there a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And one recluse. You want to write that in, Patrick, when it comes to
Okay.
Again, thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks for letting me
Exciting.
go early on
Yeah,
the agenda.
Okay.
It's great news.
Another item, with your permission, I'd like to move forward in the agenda because we have several people visiting us here, is the landmark pilot application. Okay, so do you want to join us at the thing? Emily? So we understand that we've had several conversations with Dan, and we have some changes in the agreement to present to us.
Yeah, I can get a few things out. There's a report, sorry, man. John, you can take a look. So I want to thank the committee for allowing us to get together, the administration and RUPCO, to talk more about this landmark place exemption and payment in lieu tax agreement. Just want to remind the committee that what this is, under private housing finance law 577, the Common Council and the City of Kingston have the authority to exempt this property. They are the statutory authority in this exemption, and at the same time it allows the city to enter into a payment in lieu tax agreement under the under 577. So we were able to meet with RUPCO in the past few weeks, have some really good discussions. We took into consideration some of the things that were talked about at this last finance meeting, especially Alderman Davis's concerns with regard to payments, and we dug into the agreement, and just tightened it up a bit, and we do feel it's much better in line with what we've had historically. And when we look around the area and look at similar types of projects, we feel that this new agreement is right at the top level of what we've seen before. RUPCO has been a good partner in the past, and once again, they've shown that again in this newly revised agreement with the city, what is being proposed today. So to break it down for you, I think it's on page 2 of the handout that I've given you. The initial proposal
Somebody
started.
likes it.
Charge. The initial proposal started after the 2 years of build-up of $25,000, build and lease up of $25,000 payments, which we kept the same. The initial proposal started a year 3 payment of $66,000. What has been agreed to is to raise that payment, the initial year 3 payment to $69,000, and then increase that payment 2% each year. So the result of that, in year 32, the initial proposal was an $80,000 payment, and in year 32, the new proposal brings it to $122,533. The net result of that is about $600,000 over the 32-year period. So we looked at a lot of different ways to do this, and this is what we came up with, and we think it really addresses the concerns for affordable housing in the city, and also payments back to the taxing jurisdictions.
How does this agreement compare with other agreements that we have with RUPCO? Or that other municipalities may have with RUPCO?
I can speak for the city, and Kevin could speak for other municipalities. I think with RUPCO and ourselves, it sets a new standard. We reached new heights with regard to these payments, and I think we're headed in the right direction. And I think this is a very solid agreement. We didn't have increases like this agreement compared to other ones. This has new 2% increases each year, which are result in greater payments, and we think that's something that is positive.
Any questions?
I just have a statement. My concern was
State.
something like an insurance policy like we had with the previous one. But as I understand now, RUPCO is required by the state to maintain this project under this aegis for the entire life of the pilot agreement. So it will always, at least for these 32 years, be the facility that is planned for it. So I appreciate that.
40 years because of the support housing component? Anyway.
The agreement, the regulatory agreement that we'll sign with the state is 50 years.
Okay.
32 plus 18, the date of operation.
Actually, that was my question too.
Other questions?
I guess I'll see what John thinks. I mean, I like the idea from a budgetary standpoint. I mean, this is money we know is coming in every single year for the next 32 years. I mean, it's got to make life easier from a budgetary standpoint, right?
Well, I think in terms of budgetary and even, the tax cap world that we live in, the new proposal with incremental steps rather than kind of like laddered steps is what was in the original proposal. Is a little more realistic and fits our budget better. I mean, as you know, costs rise every year. They don't just go up every 8 to 10 years. So I think this is a little more in line with all of our other costs that we budget for. And, it's not necessarily a large amount each year, but if you look at the cumulative of the $609,000 over the life of the agreement, I think it's significant. And I think it is a new positive agreement, and I think it is something that we should look at going forward with the pilots. I think it's, property taxes go up, right, over time, and they don't just go up every number of years. So, a pilot that does the same thing, I think, is a goal that we should have.
John, if we don't give them this pilot, right, what's the amount of taxes they would pay compared to this amount?
Well, Dan could speak to, there's an exemption that they would be eligible for. And I don't know that that amount is a known amount right, at this point, Dan.
Yeah, let me just grab my calculator if you don't mind. What I think you're looking for is there's a lot of different possibilities of what could happen in the future on this property. You know, we could use the current estimates that they have right now and project something, but we don't know what those income and expenses will actually necessarily be over the 32-year cycle. If we use those estimates right now, it's about, in the beginning of the 32-year cycle, we're probably about $20,000 less in payments, but at the end of the cycle, we're about $20,000 more in payments at the end of the 32-year cycle. So at the beginning of the cycle, if you're looking at 581A, I believe it's going to be a little bit less, but at the end, it'll be more. And those are my estimates when I look at the numbers.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I'm sorry, you made your motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. I want to thank you for coming here as often as you had, and for, I think this personally, don't necessarily speak for the whole committee, but I think I speak for many of us. I think this is a terrific project for the city. Thank you for your patience and all the work that over the last couple of years you put into this and your organization.
Yeah. Well, you've heard enough from me about the virtues of the project. As we see it, I would offer my thanks to each and every one of you for your consideration, deliberation on this. And I must point out that it's a real pleasure working with Mr. Baker, who's a true professional, and reminded us the power of compound interest, and really delivered a much better product for the city, and we're happy for that as well. And so I really extend my appreciation to Dan and to each of you again for your support tonight.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Let's move next to the second item on the agenda, Broadway Streetscape Project Construction Authorization and Bonding. Kristen Wilson.
Hi.
Okay.
You again.
Feel like I come here regularly.
Yeah, did we just see you?
Yeah.
That's good, actually.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you, because you always bring good news.
Well, I think this is pretty good news. We're getting ready to move to the construction phase for the Broadway Streetscape project. So the city has submitted the final plans and specifications to New York State DOT, and they're working through their approvals, I think, pretty quickly. And I think we'll be ready to bid in probably October, as long as everything goes well with DOT. And these, essentially, this is the next phase of resolutions to approve the next phase, which is construction. And we have two DOT, I guess you can call them grants or funding sources. One is the original TEP grant, which is Transportation Enhancements Program, and the other one that was for the total project cost for that was $3,001,500, and then we have $360,000 in earmark funds that we secured, I think, back in 2016 or 2017. And so these two resolutions are to fund the project costs in the first instance for construction, and we are required to have a bond for the total project costs for the New York State DOT grants to show that we have access to funding. However, the majority of it for the New York State DOT funding is reimbursable. So there's 3 resolutions before you. Do you want me to walk
Let me
through?
play back to you as I understand it, see if I got this right, understanding all the math. you're asking for a resolution to bond $2.5 million. And then added to that is $922,000, which was previously bonded, which brings a total bonding commitment of $3,422,000. Out of that, the reimbursable parts include a grant of $2,001,500 from DOT and a combined grant of $1 million from NYSERDA and DEC, which then leaves a total of $420,500 for the city's contribution.
Yeah, and this is only for the New York State DOT part of the project. This is not the total project cost, the 3 million. We have more funding. We have 5,900,000 in funding, and we're still working with our engineers on the estimated project costs and the construction inspection costs. And our plan is to advertise the project for bid and then come back once we know the actual real price. If we need more funding, then we'll come back at that
But
time.
my question, where the city's contribution, as you call it, $420,500, where does that come from?
That comes from, that's the difference between 3,422,000 and minus
The
The-
2 grants?
the 2 million, the
I
1
understand
million.
that, but,
Yeah.
but where does that money come from?
That was from the pre-existing
Additional
bond.
bonding that we've not done yet.
This is part of this, the total bond authorizations as of right now, well, we're 922,000.
Right.
Kristen's asking for another 2.5 million in bonding authorization,
Right.
which will bring the total authorizations of 3,422,000.
Right?
Kristen's expecting of that 3,422,000, the amount that we would eventually have to bond long-term for after grant reimbursements would be $420,500.
And
So
that's,
that's-
So essentially, we're not going to use the vast majority of that bond authorization, but we need it to show the state that we have access to that money.
So it's not like it's another shoe to fall that we're gonna have to bond for another 420?
No, the 420 is included in this total, correct?
and the the reason that we have that number there is that that's committed to the DEC grant match. So it's a little bit confusing,
Yeah.
but the DEC grant is matching the DOT grant, and then the 420,500 is matching the DEC grant. So I have a big spreadsheet.
We've seen it, we've seen it.
If you want to come into my office, I'm happy to walk you all through the numbers. But the grants are matching other grants, and so it does make it a little bit confusing.
So which committee part should we deal with first? The 2,000,005? What's the logical flow there?
It doesn't matter. Probably the authorizations to fund in the first instance.
All right, the bonding should be last.
You can do the 3 million.
So which do we do first?
Page 4.
Yeah, page 4.
How come that says 0?
Because it's going to be reimbursed
Request of-
by the DOT, NYSERDA, and the DC grants.
Yeah,
The 400
Okay.
or no?
all right, so let me read.
420 or,
Okay.
No, not the 420.
oh, okay.
To request authorization for the implementation and funding in the first instance, 100% of the federal aid and state Marcia program aid eligible cost of a federal aid transportation project and appropriating funds therefore for the cost of construction and construction inspection work on a Broadway streetscape project for the New York State DOT TEP master agreement. The sum of $3,001,500 will be appropriated from bonding. 100% of these funds will be reimbursed by New York State DOT, New York State Energy Research and Development Administration, and New York State Department of Environmental Conservation funding awards. So estimated financial impact, 0. What does TEP stand for?
Transportation Enhancements Program is the name of their grant program.
Okay. there a motion?
Motion.
I'm going to
That's right.
second, but I want to point out the typo in there, eligible.
Oh, where?
Misspelled.
Yeah,
Second
eligible.
second line.
Illegal.
What?
Marchicelli program and illegal.
Eligible, yeah, there's an E there. Right, eligible.
G.
No, it's a B.
Huh?
You need a B instead of the second G.
Eligible.
B instead of B instead of good.
Eligible, thank you.
That being said, I'll second.
So that was Patrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Keep going on it.
Okay, next. Which makes sense next?
The page 9.
Which is fine. Very good. Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Again, from the Office of Grant Management, to request authorization for the implementation and funding in the first instance, 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program aid eligible costs, same typo, thank you, of a federal aid transportation project and appropriating funds therefore for the cost of the construction and construction inspection work on the Broadway Streetscape project for the New York State DOT Supplemental Agreement Number 3 that covers earmarked funds for Broadway. The sum of $335,300 will be appropriated from bonding authorized by Resolution 93 of 2017. 80% of these funds will be reimbursed by the New York State Department of Transportation. So the estimated financial impact is $67,060, and that comes via previously authorized bonding.
Yeah, so that's part of the 420.
That's already been bonded.
Yeah, it's already been bonded and it's part of the.
So the $67,060 added to 268, 240 gives us this amount, 330, 300. Right?
So I said, the 335 is described in the last, in Kristen's letter.
Yeah.
Calculation of
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion here?
Motion.
Second.
that. Kristen, on the next committee report, should the financial impact be
Getting
the
slow.
It could be for the 420.
440 minus the 67,060?
No, it would be the 400 and 2,500. The 6760 is part of the
Part
400.
of the previous, right, okay, I got it. Yeah.
Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And then finally, from Office of Grant Management, a request to approve bonding in the amount of $2,500,000 for the construction and construction inspection phases of the Broadway Streetscape project.
Oh, thank you.
Questions there?
So we're adding the estimated financial impact will be the
The estimated
420.
financial impact should be 420, 500.
Yeah, yes.
Oh,
420, 500. And the source of those funds would be to be determined.
No, it's the bond. It's the bond,
Okay.
the new bond.
how many years?
Well, if I want to request, it would be at least 15 years.
Okay,
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Was that you again?
Yep,
All
I
right.
beat him.
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
We're starting tomorrow.
so I just want to be clear that these are not the total project costs. These are resolutions that relate only to the New York State DOT funding. So the amount that we have available in all of the grant fundings and bonding that we've secured at this point is 5.9 million. And so that is the total project cost is around 6 million. And we are going to advertise it for bid. And then if the bids come back in more expensive, then we would come back to you at that time.
Okay.
So I don't have the actual total project cost at this point, but I think we're doing it a little bit differently. In the past, we may be bonded before we advertised for bid, but this time we're doing it because we want to see how the bids come back, instead of having to bond for the project and then come back to you again if the bids come in more expensive. If that makes sense. I think you've experienced that a number of times, right? Where,
Yes, we have.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know what's next on the agenda, but I'm here to support Greg on Flatbush and Foxwell.
There's a budget transfer that's,
All right, well, let's,
Actually-
Take a 2-minute break.
we skipped the tow truck thing.
I know. We'll get there. I was just trying to get the people who are sitting there. So, okay, so let's go to Flatbush and Foxhall safety improvements. The sidewalks. And Joe, you're from engineering.
Greg.
Greg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Engineering. Yeah, so
Joe, what is your last name?
Greg.
Yeah, all right.
His last name is Joe.
Oh, all right.
last name's Krupp, K-R-U-P-P.
All right. So you're basically representing John.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we're at a point right now where we got contracts back from DOT to initiate federal aid local agreement for the project. And in order to sign those, to get this project into design,
To this one?
Thank you.
we have to pass a resolution for those phases, for design and right-of-way incidentals. And so that's why we're here tonight.
What page is this?
18.
18.
You guys are familiar with this project?
Yes.
Why don't you review it, please?
So,
Quickly.
yeah, so it's a sidewalk project on the north side of Flatbush and on both sides of Foxhall, from Colonial Gardens all the way to Broadway. And there's 2 railroad crossings, one at Flatbush, one at Foxhall. And in those areas, there'll be pedestrian waiting stations are in the design. And so we were awarded a grant for about 3.6 million from DOT TAP, which is Transportation Alternatives Program, and a DEC Climate Smart Communities grant for around $772,000. And are there any other questions?
Okay, so the total cost is $686,000, $548,800 reimbursed through grant from DOT, another $137 being reimbursed through grant funds by New York DEC, so we're on the hook for $200.
For these phases,
Right.
which is we have to match, there's for right-of-way incidentals, which we don't expect any, we have $1,000 for that phase.
Yeah.
So that number could change if we run into right-of-way issues, but with DOT, we just put a placeholder essentially of $1,000, and we have to do a 20/80 match with them, so that's why it's 200.
Okay. Okay, so which one should we go
I
first?
think we can afford that.
You do the bonding last, so.
Okay, so we'll do it to authorize implementation.
Yeah, they're authorized for the funding.
Any other
First,
questions?
Page
For-
22
For
first.
Greg, sorry. Okay, a resolution to authorize implementation and funding in the first instance 100% for the federal aid and state Monticelli program aid eligible, again, cost of a transportation federal aid project for preliminary engineering and right-of-way incidentals for safe and accessible Flatbush and Foxhall Avenues. Estimated financial impact to the city is $200.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much. Those sidewalks are much needed.
Sidewalk.
And the streets.
Are there any sidewalks over here?
Yes, I-
Goat paths, somebody called them on that.
It's a dangerous walk. I drive, that's my way home, and it's dark and dangerous. So thank you very much.
And finally, bonding. Request to authorize bonding in the amount of $686,000 for the design and right-of-way incidental costs related to the Flatbush and Foxhall Safety Improvement Project. $548,800 will be reimbursed through grants funded by the New York State Department of Transportation. $137,000 will be reimbursed through grant funds administered by New York State DEC. This will result in a $200 local share related to right-of-way incidental. So the estimated financial impact is $200. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Brett. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
So,
Because I'm keeping my mouth shut. Have you noticed?
okay, let's move to Emily on the
Chess table,
yeah, what page is that?
33.
Thank you.
Would you like me to sit at the table?
Hmm?
Would you like me to join? the
Yeah,
table?
sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, 32.
Absolutely. This is, they have a grant from the AARP, basically to cover all of this, right?
Almost, yeah.
Almost,
Just about $200 that is not being covered.
okay, $190.
Doug, can you
Yes.
tell me where we are? I'm sorry. Do we go back again?
It's actually page 30,
Oh, thank you.
actually 29 for
Thank
the
you.
letter.
Thank you.
So the Live Well Kingston Commission and its two focus teams, Play Well and Age Well, collaborated to had this germ of an idea to create a multi-generational space. So they came up with a all ages chess playground. The idea is to get seniors and people of all ages to play a game together and to have some programming along with it. So we applied with the help of the grants department, of course, to the AARP, and we received around $11,000 from them. And it was $11,224. We estimated structures that were very much like what you might see down in New York City, the concrete chess tables. So that was the estimate that we came up with. But since then, the construction on the Kingston Point Rail Trail has happened, and we really like the tables that are there. So we've decided to go with Victor Stanley. This is an example of their chess tables. But we, instead of the chairs, we're going to do 2 benches on each side of 2 tables. So 4 benches, 2 tables. Because when we talked to our seniors, they said they wanted a bench. They thought that was a better choice because then people can sit next to them. They can join it.
Advisors.
Yes. And they asked for the handles to be able to get up and down from it. What else can I tell you? Sure. So these are the tables that are at the Kingston Point Rail Trail that just opened last Friday. So we really liked the structure. We thought this was the way to go. So it will have a chessboard in the center of it. It is recycled plastic, so it's better for the environment.
How big is that?
Is that,
It
is it,
I mean, that's a long reach for,
No, right, so that's just the example of the what the
Material?
company, yeah, the material. of the
Oh, okay,
company
not
is.
the size
No,
of it.
The table, let's see here, so it is 36 inches squared.
oh,
Is the
okay.
table.
This is more like,
Probably like 48.
yeah, this is more like 48 inch.
Here,
are the chessboards gonna be, flush? Or are
Yes.
they gonna be raised up?
I do believe it is some kind of material that is applied to the top and screwed down, but it should be very close to flush.
Okay, so it's not gonna obstruct the use of the table?
No, you can still
in
use this
any
table,
way?
yeah. Here are some engineering plans from the company of the benches and the tables. If anyone's interested, here's the quote from the company for them.
And
That's so long, I can't remember.
so where are these going to go? Where are these going to go? These are recycled tables. That's a wooden table, right? The first one.
Right.
Where's it? Where can you tell me where they're going to go?
Sure.
Where they're going to go?
So we're looking at TR Gallo Park. We have a site plan here. It's going to be on the southwest side of the plaza with the gazebo down in TR Gallo Park. We sent out a survey to the community. Everyone responded. TR Gallo Park won that selection. We also were interested in TR Gallo Park because already seniors often are there. It's a park that's conducive to this kind of activity. That's the
Right
site
here.
plan.
Oh, there's 3?
No, so we did alternates, but we decided on the final place.
The
on
final
southwest
place here
side
by the
is
parking
A,
lot.
that you'll see there on the
By the
map.
park. Any shade in that area?
There's a tree right there, so there is natural shade already. It's a nice flat spot. We'll be pouring a pad for it. But other than that, it's pretty much ready for this kind of infrastructure here.
Is there any disabled parking
Right there
in that area?
in that parking lot.
in that near there?
I believe there is
Okay.
disabled, yeah.
It probably, right? That's probably where it
There's
is.
also the charging station for the electric vehicle there. I believe that right next to it is handicap parking. So actually,
So the seniors bring their electric
very
vehicle.
convenient.
How much we gonna charge?
Can I
people
plug
to
in my
use these?
scooter?
Well, so
What's
also
those things
in
called?
this project is
My scooter?
programming. So I've budgeted about $1,000 to do a monthly chess meetup. We're looking to partner with another community organization that's already doing chess programming. The idea is to, if we create a monthly meetup, maybe more people will start to come, start to build on it.
Can you tell me about, is there any other spots where this is going, or is just that's the spot?
Right, so we wanted to put the 2 tables and the 4 benches in the same spot so that it's sort of a tournament. So that this idea that multiple people will be playing chess at the
Okay,
same time.
so you did away with that wooden bench and you're going with this. Is that correct?
So
The
it's
wooden
going-
table is no longer you're going with the recycled plastic table. Is that
Right, we're
correct?
doing the recycled plastic, that's what we did on the rail trail. It'll have a cohesive look, so it's the same. The wood is just the example that they had on their website.
But this isn't on the rail trail, correct?
No, I'm
It's
just.
not on it. I mean, that promenade's not part of the rail trail, is it? Is that considered part of the rail trail?
Technically, the promenade is part of the green line, but
It is part of the green line?
it is technically, yeah. I have a map of the green line, actually, if you are interested.
So
in
where is the wooden table going to be used at all?
that. No, there's no wooden table. It's
What was
all.
that first table you showed me? Oh, for the benches?
That's just an example of what Victor Stanley has on their website of their chess.
Oh.
I just wanted to show you.
I really liked that one.
Well, yeah.
And you're going to bolt something to the top of this table?
So yes, it comes with a chess board
Oh,
on the table.
So the manufacturer, Victor Stanley, will do that for
Yes.
you? And it's secured?
Yes, and it's weatherproof. It's made
Okay,
for
great.
that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Other,
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I mean, so I just need to tout my Livewell Kingston Commission and the focus teams that play well and age well for that. It's a great way that, so I just have to say that this is health. So community involvement coming together, creating our parks to be inclusive for more people. That's all about health for our community and our quality of life. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so we have a resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the cost of the chess playground at TR Gallo Park. Estimated financial impact is 0.
Motion?
Motion. Second.
Beat you.
Second.
Oh, you're slowing down over there.
Getting tired.
You just ruined
All in
it.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah, the hot streak going there.
I know, I
Okay,
did.
now you have another chance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, this is a budget transfer. Transfer funds from the grant revenue and health and wellness general materials and supplies account to the health and wellness other equipment account for the AARP grant-funded chess playground project. So transfer from health and wellness general materials 4010.485 in the amount of $190 to health and wellness other equipment account number 4010.5211, and from grant revenue account number 4010.2205 in the amount of $11,224 to health and wellness other equipment account 4010.4211. Estimated financial impact is 0. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
When will this be installed? Do you think?
So there's about a 2-month production time, so hopefully,
Spring.
well, hopefully we'll install it this winter. AARP wants to see it happen soon. So it'll be installed this fall, and hopefully programming will be in the spring, and we'll have a kickoff in the spring with the programming.
That would be 2 months.
Doesn't mean we have to go on to the test, huh?
Well, so I think it's on Martin Luther King Day, the school sometimes does a chess tournament. I think that might be a little cold, but maybe we can go visit it. Yeah.
Okay, getting down to some other items. Is Mike Bonds here? Do we have the,
No, he's not here.
but this is a transfer to Carpet City Court based upon a grant from, or not a grant, but revenue from the New York State Court reimbursement.
Correct. It's a in and out,
Right, this is paid,
no financial impact.
you want to pay
Committee report here on page 16.
16. Okay, Mike is asking for budget transfer for the 2019 budget. This is a request to transfer from a New York State Court reimbursement revenue account to a furniture and fixtures account to fund the carpeting project of the city court and offices. All costs will be reimbursed by New York State Court. Estimated financial impact is 0. So it's an in and out.
Correct.
Question? Motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, Kevin Gilfeather, Parks and Recreation. We have a CDBG grant of $85,000 that he wants to transfer into the Rondout Center for HVAC and roof improvements. That's another in and out.
Correct. Similar. It's 95,000, I think it's 85.
85, what page?
95, page 26 and 27. 27 is the committee report.
Okay, we're seeking repairs to the lower roof and HVAC units of the Rondout Neighborhood Center. These expenses will be reimbursed with CDBG funds. So I recommend $95,000 transfer from the reimbursement account into the contractor services account.
Correct. You're increasing revenue and expenses.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right, that's compatible headphones, this is Elisa and working with Kyle, looking for, huh?
That's your transfer for it.
Okay, a budgetary transfer, additional costs related to common council microphone system. This is so that our system can be ADA compatible. I've tried it a couple times. They seem to help a lot.
Yeah, so actually, as you know, we have a new system, we have a sound system in the chambers that we'll all put in, and we really need to be ADA compliant and have headphones available. And actually, there's it requires a certain amount for the size of the room, the capacity of the room, and so this is to meet that requirement. It's for 3 headphones.
This will be accessible to how many people?
3. And the state sets the regulation based on the room capacity. So this is so that we are in compliance.
That meets a state requirement. For this size room, you need 3.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it-
Kyle found the,
I thought I saw 2, the number 2. Is it going to be 2 or 3?
I think, no, well, we're purchasing 2 headphones. Kyle has 1.
Oh, okay. Okay, so 2019 budgetary transfer of additional costs related to common council microphones, increase other equipment by $1,167, and the decrease is to come from the contingency. Okay. And I think it's an improvement. I've tried them. Okay, is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 2 other items here. Bill Carey was on the agenda to discuss revisions to Chapter 180 of the city code, which he says are no longer applicable. Do you know? He's not
I didn't
here.
have a chance to look it up.
Well, he's saying
He's
since
referencing
Huh?
the fare, he's referencing the
Bus
fares to city bus that are in the code,
Yeah,
that, since we no longer have a bus program, to remove them from the code. That's his request.
it's housekeeping.
Yeah.
so we do nothing?
We can take it out. That's the, if it's not of use anymore, it's an appendix, as in the organ in your body.
I can look up code, I haven't had a chance to look up code 180.
I mean,
Well-
it might be good to get, just, Kevin left, it might be good to have that go through Corporation Council first, just to make sure there's no issue.
Is he gone?
Fine.
Ron?
It's not an emergency.
Non-emergency.
Not an emergency. It's not an emergency. He said maybe you should go through the to the lawyers first.
I think it'd be a good idea to get some input from
All right. So we table it.
the table.
Table.
Yeah.
Okay. Let that release? Okay. The only other item, other than getting to John, but is the tow truck fees, and Andrea has asked that we table that so she has more information. She's really not ready to make a presentation on that.
I'm ready for prime time. huh?
So she asked that we table that one,
All right.
okay? So now, that's all from the items on the agenda. We go to the controller's review. Do I have all
I stapled
the
this.
resolutions?
Thank you.
Yeah, here's-
This update is through July, it's the last month that we've closed, we're at 58.33% of the year. We've spent approximately 51% of the 2019 budget. Most of the significant categories we're tracking positive to budget. Regular pay is 52% expended. The major utility accounts, electricity, vehicle fuel, are tracking positive. I won't read through every single one. Health insurance, dental insurance are all tracking positive. Overtime continues to be tracking negative. That's a result of some of these positions not being backfilled. The positive variance in regular pay more than offsets the negative variance in overtime pay. Retirement accumulation, you still have some departments who are going to have to submit these transfers from other pay accounts within their departments. Some of them will have to come from contingency towards the end of the year to cover. Vehicle maintenance, equipment rental are tracking over as well. Your police and fire department are both positive. I mean, as I go through the budget, generally speaking, the departments are doing a good job of monitoring. There's not any significant overages in terms of like a department-wide issue, citywide. Sales tax.
For what?
Just in terms of like, departments in overall spending within their approved amounts.
Okay.
When you look at cumulative, I mean, you're going to have some overages within budget lines, but on a cumulative level, it looks good. Sales tax is tracking 5.36% above the prior year. You have a spreadsheet report on that. We are in the, as I've mentioned before, we do have a contractual limit this year, but overall, it's what the payments would be are significantly higher than the prior year. Right now, you're looking at our budget is $13,645,000. Our net distribution that we're are limited to is $13,825,000, but you're going to have a significant pickup for next year in the budget, it looks like at this point. Right now, the projected year-to-date before any contractual clawback would be somewhere between 14.2 and 14.6 million. The weighted average would be close to 14.4. I mean, it's early in the year, so we have to continue to monitor it as you go through the year. But at this point, the estimated sales tax agreement reduction would be $560,000. That make sense? That calculation? So this is a hard cap year. Next year is a soft cap year. All right.
So fund balance running at 17%, and we want that to be a minimum of.
Right. So this is just we measure this at the end of each year. This is before any actions that the council has taken. Right. So the council has spent some money from fund balance during 19. You've also authorized pay down of retirement system debt in 19. It hasn't happened yet. So we'll measure this again as of December 31st, 19. Keep in mind this is the unaudited number, not the audited number. So I'll continue to update you there. And contingency balances prior to any of the transfers that you've approved tonight.
What was? Remind me again. At the beginning, what was the budgetary contingency balance beginning of the year? What did we draw down from? Around $1 million.
I want to give you the exact number. It was 772,247.
That was the budget there?
772,247.
And that's all we've drawn down?
Yeah,
690?
you've taken more from fund balance than you have from contingency. A lot of those the transfers we've taken from fund balance to get the fund balance down within the policy.
But you're really holding a reserve for the lease contract there?
Well, the lion's share of the contingency was because you had unsettled contracts. Continued on unsettled contracts.
And where does that stand now?
On track at this point.
Yeah. Where is that? Where are we on
Not settled.
that? Okay.
John, can we just go back to overtime pay for a minute?
Yes.
Now, I know that the overtime pay actually mathematically sometimes works out better than hiring somebody with all the benefits and all that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so.
So that's why, okay.
Well, for an example, you take like say fire department right now, we have a,
Yeah.
we're under a safer grant, but, part of the thought process is, in some of these, it's not even intentional. Sometimes you run into the overtime, you have the savings on regular pay because the position can't be filled.
Right.
I mean, I know there's been some vacancies in DPW they've been trying to fill and they just haven't been able to fill them. So you have some regular pay savings there.
What department is utilizing the most overtime pay?
Typically it's police and fire.
Police and fire are the biggest ones?
Typically, yeah. And the largest budgets for overtime.
Okay.
And that's all, the lion's share of that's contractual. With the fire department, the vast majority of their overtime is manning overtime. They have to have 10 on shift.
Right.
So, they run into that.
Yeah.
You have
Same
some more
with the police
staffing
department.
requirements. It's not a manning, but it's a staffing requirement of the police department. And
Okay.
that's,
Yeah, I get it.
But there's a little more variety in what the overtime is for the police department than the fire department. The fire department is generally manning.
Right.
There's some, where they'll hold somebody over on a shift for a fire call, but dollar-wise, it's
Okay, thank you,
predominantly
John.
manning.
Thank you.
Okay. Where are we standing now? Looking ahead, 2020 budget.
Working on it.
Yeah. Just, you have an idea when we'll see the...
I don't
I
know.
know you're working.
It's due to the council 45 days or
Alright.
no, I'm sorry, 75 days before the end of the year. It's October 17th, I think, typically is when it's due to council.
Okay.
We can get it to you before then we would.
So, I'm trying to remember when we started our sessions last year. Was it?
Usually the end of October is when
Yeah,
you start.
when we're on a run through.
Right, well, you have to have the public hearing first.
Right.
You have a public hearing and then you set the dates. Typically they've been through from late October through the end of November. We've been vote on it, you should vote on it at the December, your December council meeting. So the goal would be to have a wrap-up meeting prior to that December caucus.
Just to let everybody know who's coming. Can I just back up 1 second?
Thanks, Doug.
Again, to the overtime pay.
Yeah.
Do we get reimbursed some overtime pays, like from the movie companies and stuff
Some of
like
that,
that?
yeah.
So is that,
That's the gross amount. That wouldn't,
so
That's
that,
not-
where would that be reflected on the revenue if we get reimbursed? for that?
yes, yeah, and that overtime pay is, not reflecting any, reimbursement, so I haven't, it's just, and once again, it depends. I mean, if the department has submitted a budgetary transfer to increase their overtime budget
Yeah.
for the movie overtime, then it would be reflected there. Typically they haven't been, so.
And where does that go? In the general fund or does it go towards the
For the festival,
police
like, for the-
budget
for
or
the-
police?
Um,
Where does the actual
when-
money go?
For the festival, like when they're doing the overtime,
Yeah, or the movie
Well-
company.
it goes back into the general fund. It
General
gets
fund.
credited back though to the department that, in the case of the police department, they have a festival event reimbursement account where we go back to the fire department has another one. So, when they're getting reimbursed for overtime, it goes back into their departments. There's also a general special events reimbursement account where some of the general fees like parking fees and stuff like that, that goes back into the special events account.
Okay. All right.
There's nothing else, is there?
Motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Before we, I'd like to introduce my older brother,